Ancient Puerto Rico is layered with stories carved in stone, hidden in caves, and aligned with the sun, from ceremonial ball courts deep in the mountains to sacred rivers and petroglyphs along the coast. These sites reveal a culture rich in knowledge, ritual, and symbolism. Much of it remains unexplained, quietly waiting to be understood. The Caguana Ceremonial Ball Courts. The Caguana Ceremonial Ball Courts sit in a broad river valley near Utuado, tucked between steep green hills that seem to close in the farther you travel from the coast. The road narrows, the air feels heavier, and by the time you step onto the grounds, there's a clear sense that this place was chosen carefully. Nothing about Caguana feels accidental. Even today, it feels set apart, not hidden, but intentionally removed from ordinary movement. Caguana is the largest known Taíno ceremonial complex in Puerto Rico, and one of the most important indigenous sites in the Caribbean. Archaeologists generally date its main period of use between the 13th and 15th centuries, though evidence suggests the area may have been sacred even earlier. What survives now is a complex arrangement of plazas, ball courts known as batijis, stone alignments and carved monoliths spread across a wide terrace above the Tanama River. The scale alone challenges old assumptions about Taíno society being loosely organized or primitive. As you walk into the main plaza, the openness is striking. The courts are defined by large upright stones placed along the edges, forming rectangular and oval shapes. These stones vary in size, some reaching several feet high, others worn down and rounded with age. Many are undecorated, but several are carved with faces, symbols, and abstract forms that remain difficult to interpret. These carvings are not random. They are positioned deliberately, often facing inward toward the ceremonial spaces, as if meant to witness what happened there. The Batey ball game was central to Taíno ceremonial life, but it wasn't a sport in the modern sense. The game involved teams striking a solid rubber ball using hips, shoulders, or forearms, but the outcome carried ritual and social meaning. The game could symbolize balance between opposing forces, reinforce alliances, or serve as a way to resolve disputes without warfare. Some accounts suggest the game was tied to agricultural cycles, with victories symbolically influencing rainfall, fertility, or harvest success. At Caguana, the presence of multiple courts suggests that ceremonies were frequent and layered. This wasn't a place built for a single annual event. Different courts may have served different clans, purposes, or ritual phases. One court might host a competitive game, while another nearby space was used for chanting, dancing, or offerings. The layout allows for movement between spaces, guiding participants through a sequence rather than keeping them in one fixed location. One of the most intriguing aspects of Caguana is its relationship to the sky. Several plazas show alignments with solar events, particularly the equinoxes. On these days, sunlight falls along specific axes of the courts, illuminating certain stones while leaving others in shadow. This suggests that the Taíno tracked solar cycles closely and integrated them into ceremonial planning. It challenges the idea that advanced astronomy was limited to stone monuments in places like Mesoamerica or the Andes. Standing in the main plaza during midday, it's easy to imagine how light would have played across the stones during ceremonies. The open sky above, the mountains framing the horizon, and the steady presence of the river below all contribute to a sense of time being marked not by clocks, but by natural cycles. Caguana feels designed to make participants aware of where they stood in relation to the sun, the land, and one another. The carved stones themselves add another layer of mystery. Many feature anthropomorphic faces believed to represent zemis, spiritual entities associated with ancestors, natural forces, or divine principles. These faces vary in style. Some are rounded and calm, others sharp and abstract. Their expressions are ambiguous, neither clearly benevolent nor threatening. This ambiguity may have been intentional, reflecting a worldview where spiritual forces were powerful but unpredictable. Zemis were central to Taíno belief systems. They were not distant gods, but active presences involved in daily life, agriculture, weather, and health. At Caguana, the placement of zemi faces facing inward suggests they were meant to observe, participate, or even judge the ceremonies taking place. The courts may have functioned as stages where humans interacted directly with the spiritual world. Another enduring mystery is how the stones were transported and erected. The Taíno had no metal tools, wheeled vehicles, or draft animals. Moving multi-ton stones would have required coordinated labor, planning, and knowledge of leverage and balance. This implies a level of social organization capable of mobilizing large groups for shared ceremonial goals. Caguana was not built by a small, isolated community. It was a regional center that drew people together. The lack of permanent domestic structures within the ceremonial core is also telling. There are no clear remains of houses or everyday living spaces among the courts. This suggests Caguana was not a village but a destination. People traveled here intentionally, leaving their daily routines behind to enter a sacred landscape. In this sense, Caguana functioned like a pilgrimage site, a place where normal rules were suspended in favor of ritual order. Spanish chroniclers described Taíno ceremonies involving music, chanting, dance, and the use of cojoba, a hallucinogenic snuff made from seeds. Leaders would inhale cojoba to communicate with the spirit world, seeking guidance or prophecy. While these accounts are filtered through colonial perspectives, they align with archaeological evidence suggesting Caguana was a place where altered states of consciousness played a role in ceremony. Political life was likely intertwined with ritual here, organizing large gatherings, maintaining ceremonial calendars, and coordinating labor would have required leadership. Caguana may have been overseen by a powerful cacique, or it may have served as neutral ground where multiple groups gathered under shared traditions. Either way, it reflects a society capable of cooperation on a large scale. Over time, Caguana fell silent. The arrival of Europeans brought disease, forced labor, and cultural disruption that devastated Taíno populations. Ceremonial centers were abandoned, their meanings gradually fading from living memory. Nature reclaimed the site, but did not erase it. Stones remained where they were placed, weathered but intact, holding their positions long after the ceremonies ended. Today, Caguana is preserved as a cultural park. Paths guide visitors through the courts, and signs offer context, but the site remains largely unaltered. There are no reconstructions, no dramatic displays. You stand where people once stood, looking at the same stones, the same sky. On quiet days, the only sounds are wind, insects, and distant water. What makes Caguana powerful is not spectacle, but restraint. It doesn't explain itself easily. The carvings don't translate neatly into modern language. The alignments hint at knowledge without spelling it out. Even after decades of research, many questions remain open. Were certain ceremonies restricted to elites? Did different courts correspond to different seasons or myths? How did individuals experience these rituals on a personal level? Caguana forces us to confront how much has been lost, not just physically, but culturally. At the same time, it reminds us that Taíno society was complex, intentional, and deeply connected to place. This was not a culture drifting aimlessly through the landscape. It shaped sacred space with care, precision, and meaning. Standing in the main plaza today, there's a quiet sense of continuity. The stones are still aligned. The sun still moves across them in predictable ways. The river still flows below. Whatever meanings have faded, the structure remains. Caguana doesn't demand belief. It invites attention. In the end, the mystery of Caguana isn't about proving a single theory. It's about recognizing that some places were built to hold meaning beyond words. Even now, centuries later, the site continues to do what it was designed to do: mark time, gather people, and remind us that the past is not as distant as it sometimes feels. The Tibes Indigenous Ceremonial Center. The Tibes Indigenous Ceremonial Center lies just outside modern-day Ponce, in a landscape that feels deceptively ordinary at first. Suburban streets give way to open ground, and then suddenly, the space opens up into wide ceremonial plazas bordered by mountains in the distance. Unlike sites hidden deep in forests or caves, Tibes sits in plain view, and that alone makes it unusual. This was not a place meant to be concealed. It was meant to be seen, visited, and returned to. Tibes is one of the most important archaeological sites in the Caribbean because of its age and continuity. Evidence suggests the area was occupied as early as 300 BCE, making it significantly older than most known Taíno ceremonial centers. What archaeologists uncovered here points to a long sequence of indigenous cultures, from the early Agnori peoples through later Taíno societies. Tibes wasn't just a single moment in time frozen in stone. It was a ceremonial landscape that evolved over centuries. The site includes multiple Beatty ball courts, stone-lined plazas, burial areas, and residential zones, all arranged with a level of planning that challenges early assumptions about pre-Columbian Caribbean societies. These are not random clearings. The courts are carefully shaped and oriented, some rectangular, others more trapezoidal, bordered by stones set deliberately into the ground. Several alignments suggest intentional positioning in relation to celestial events. What makes Tibes particularly mysterious is its connection to astronomy. Researchers have noted that certain plazas align with the rising and setting sun during solstices and equinoxes. From specific points within the site, the sun appears to rise over or set behind particular mountain peaks on key dates of the year. This implies that Tibes functioned as a kind of calendar, allowing its builders to track seasonal changes critical for agriculture, ceremony, and social organization. Standing in one of the main plazas, you can see how the surrounding mountains frame the horizon. These natural features weren't obstacles, they were reference points. The landscape itself became part of the ceremonial system, blending constructed space with natural markers. This integration suggests a worldview where humans, land, and sky were inseparable. The ball courts at Tibes, like those at Caguana, were not merely recreational. The Beatty game carried symbolic weight. It reflected balance, order, and the ongoing negotiation between opposing forces, whether social, spiritual, or natural. At Tibes, the presence of multiple courts hints at layered ceremonial use. Different courts may have served different groups, seasons, or ritual purposes. One of the most compelling discoveries at Tibes was its burial ground. Archaeologists uncovered remains arranged in ways that indicate complex funerary practices. Bodies were often buried in a seated position, sometimes accompanied by grave goods. These were not hurried burials. They reflect ritual care and a belief system that treated death as a transition rather than an end. Some burials appear to be of high-status individuals, possibly caciques or spiritual leaders. Their placement within the ceremonial complex suggests that leadership, ancestry, and sacred space were closely linked. Ancestors were not removed from daily life. They remained present within the ceremonial heart of the community. The coexistence of ceremonial plazas and burial areas raises important questions. Was Tibes a place where the living and the dead interacted symbolically? Did ceremonies honor specific ancestors whose remains rested nearby? The layout suggests continuity between generations, reinforcing social memory and identity. Unlike some ceremonial centers, Tibes also shows evidence of nearby habitation. This suggests it was not solely a pilgrimage site, but part of a living community. People likely moved between domestic spaces and ceremonial areas regularly, weaving ritual into daily life rather than separating it entirely. Another mystery lies in Tibes' long lifespan. The site was used and modified across multiple cultural phases. Structures were added, altered, or abandoned over time. This continuity implies a shared sacred significance that outlasted individual groups. Later inhabitants didn't erase what came before. They built around it, respecting earlier layouts while adapting them to new needs. This raises questions about cultural transmission. How were ceremonial meanings passed down over centuries without written language? Oral tradition, ritual repetition, and spatial memory likely played key roles. Tibes itself may have functioned as a teaching tool, its plazas and alignments reinforcing shared knowledge through repeated use. The decline of Tibes mirrors broader patterns across Puerto Rico after European contact, disease, forced labor, and displacement devastated indigenous populations. Ceremonial centers lost their communities. Without people to maintain them, the plazas fell silent. Over time, vegetation reclaimed the space, and knowledge of its purpose faded. Ironically, Tibes remained hidden in plain sight for centuries. It wasn't until the late 20th century, after flooding exposed stone features, that the full extent of the site was recognized. What had once been a ceremonial heart was rediscovered by accident, reminding us how fragile historical memory can be. Today, Tibes is preserved as a cultural park and museum. Walking paths guide visitors through the courts, and reconstructed elements help visualize how the site may have looked. Yet even with modern interpretation, much remains uncertain. The alignments suggest astronomy, but we don't know the full ceremonial calendar. The burials tell us about belief in the afterlife, but not how individuals understood their own deaths. Visiting Tibes today feels different from more remote sites. You can hear traffic in the distance. You're aware of modern life continuing just beyond the boundary. That contrast makes the site more striking, not less. It highlights how ancient and modern worlds overlap rather than exist separately. The stones at Tibes don't demand attention. They sit quietly, low to the ground, their shapes subtle. But the longer you stay, the more intentional everything feels. Lines begin to make sense. Sightlines reveal themselves. You realize this place was designed to be experienced over time, not understood at a glance. Tibes challenges the idea that complexity requires monumentality. There are no towering pyramids or massive walls. Instead, meaning is embedded in orientation, repetition, and relationship to the land. This kind of complexity is easy to overlook, especially through a modern lens that equates importance with size. In the end, The mystery of the Tibes Indigenous Ceremonial Center lies not in what is missing, but in what continues to function. The sun still rises over the same mountains. Shadows still move across the plazas. The space still organizes attention and movement, just as it did centuries ago. Tibes reminds us that ancient knowledge didn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it was built into the ground beneath people's feet, shaping how they gathered, remembered, and understood their place in the world. Even now, standing among the plazas, it's hard to shake the feeling that this place still knows exactly what it was meant to do. The Cave of the Jaguar, Cueva del Indio. The Cave of the Jaguar, often called Cueva del Indio, sits along Puerto Rico's rugged northern coast, carved into limestone cliffs that face the Atlantic. Getting there already feels like crossing a boundary. You follow a narrow path, hear the ocean before you see it, and then the cave opens suddenly, wide and dark, with wind and salt air moving through it. This is not a small shelter or a hidden crack in the rock. It is a large, commanding space that feels intentionally entered, not stumbled upon. For the Taíno, caves were not just physical places, they were points of transition. According to Taíno belief, caves were linked to origins, spirits, and the underworld. Some creation stories describe humanity itself emerging from caves. Others associate caves with Coibe, the land of the dead. In that context, Cueva del Indio was never just a coastal cave. It was a threshold between worlds. The name Cave of the Jaguar does not come from colonial legend, but from the powerful animal symbolism tied to the site. While jaguars did not live in Puerto Rico, the jaguar held deep symbolic meaning across the Caribbean and parts of the Americas. It represented strength, night, spiritual authority, and the ability to move between worlds. For the Taíno, animal spirits were not abstract symbols, they were active forces that could guide, protect, or challenge humans. Inside the cave, petroglyphs cover sections of the walls and ceilings. These carvings are worn, faint in places, and easy to miss if you rush. Faces emerge slowly from the stone as your eyes adjust. Some are simple circles with eyes and mouths. Others are more complex, layered shapes that feel almost fluid, as if they were meant to shift depending on light and shadow. Several carvings are believed to represent zemes, spiritual beings tied to ancestors, nature, and cosmic forces. What sets Cueva del Indio apart from many other petroglyph sites is its setting. The carvings are not in an open riverbed or plaza. They are inside a living cave shaped by water, darkness, and echo. Sound behaves differently here. Voices carry, drips of water create rhythm. The cave itself becomes part of the experience, amplifying ceremony and presence. The jaguar imagery is subtle rather than literal. There are no clear animal outlines carved into the rock. Instead, certain facial features, angular shapes, and abstract forms suggest transformation rather than depiction. This aligns with indigenous spiritual traditions where animals were not represented as simple images, but as states of being. A shaman did not worship the jaguar, they embodied its qualities during ritual. Many researchers believe Cueva del Indio was used for ceremonial initiation or shamanic practices. The darkness, isolation, and sensory intensity of the cave would have been ideal for altered states of consciousness. Combined with chanting, drumming, or cohoba, the hallucinogenic snuff used by Taíno spiritual leaders, the cave could have served as a place where visions were sought and meanings revealed. The cave's coastal location adds another layer. The Taíno world was shaped by water. Rivers, rain, and the sea were all spiritually significant. Standing inside the cave, you can hear waves crashing outside, even when you can't see the ocean. That constant presence of sound may have reinforced the idea that this place was connected to powerful forces beyond human control. One of the enduring mysteries of Cueva del Indio is how frequently it was used. Was it reserved for rare ceremonies? Or was it part of a regular ritual cycle? The density of carvings suggests repeated visits over time rather than a single event, yet the lack of domestic artifacts implies it was not a place of daily life. Like Caguana, it seems to have been a destination, entered with intention. Another question is who was allowed inside. Not all sacred spaces were open to everyone. Some caves may have been restricted to shamans, elders, or initiates undergoing specific rites. The narrow passages and uneven footing would have limited access naturally, reinforcing separation between the sacred and the ordinary. The carvings themselves resist easy interpretation. Some faces appear human, others distorted or blended with animal features. This ambiguity may reflect transformation, a core concept in indigenous spirituality. in ceremony, participants did not remain fully human. They crossed into other states, guided by spirit allies like the Jaguar. Time behaves strangely inside the cave. Without direct sunlight, it's easy to lose track of hours. This disorientation may have been intentional. Ceremonies that disrupted ordinary perception helped participants step outside daily concerns and enter sacred time. In that sense, the cave functioned as a tool, not just a backdrop. Spanish colonization brought an abrupt end to these practices. Indigenous ceremonies were suppressed, sacred spaces were abandoned or destroyed, and oral traditions were disrupted. Caves like Cueva del Indio survived largely because they were difficult to erase. Stone remembers even when people are gone. Over centuries, erosion, vandalism, and tourism have taken their toll. Some carvings are damaged, others have faded almost completely. Yet enough remains to suggest the depth of meaning once held here. The fact that the site still draws attention speaks to its lingering power. Today, visitors walk through the cave with flashlights, pointing out carvings and taking photos. It's easy to treat the site as a curiosity or backdrop for coastal scenery. But if you slow down, turn off artificial light for a moment, and let your eyes adjust, the space changes. The cave feels less like a museum, and more like a presence. There's no single message carved into the walls, no clear story with a beginning and end. Instead, there's accumulation. Generations added marks, faces, and symbols, layering meaning over time. The cave became a record not of events, but of experience. What makes Cueva del Indio mysterious isn't just what we don't know, but what we can sense without fully understanding. The carvings don't explain themselves. The Jaguar is never named outright, meaning stays just out of reach, as it likely was meant to. In the Taíno worldview, knowledge was not always meant to be shared openly. Some truths were earned through experience, endurance, and ritual. The cave reflects that philosophy. It does not teach through explanation, it teaches through immersion. Standing near the cave entrance today, with sunlight behind you and darkness ahead, you occupy the same threshold that people once crossed with purpose and preparation. That moment of hesitation, of choosing to step forward, may be the most important part of the experience. Cueva del Indio remains a place of transition, between land and sea, light and dark, past and present. It doesn't ask you to believe in jaguars or spirits. It asks you to recognize that long before written history, people understood how to shape space to change the human mind. That understanding hasn't disappeared. It's still carved into the stone, waiting quietly, just beyond the edge of the light. The mystery of La Piedra Escrita. La Piedra Escrita sits beside the Rio Saliente in the town of Jaguar, far from the coast and deep in Puerto Rico's central mountains. The drive alone changes your sense of scale. The land tightens into valleys, the air cools, and the river begins to dominate the landscape. Then, almost abruptly, the stone appears. It rises from the riverbank, like something placed rather than discovered, massive, smooth in places, rough in others, its surface marked with carvings that refuse to explain themselves. At first glance, La Piedra Escrita looks like a natural boulder that happened to catch human attention, but the longer you stand there, the harder that explanation becomes. The carvings are intentional, deeply incised, and positioned where they would be clearly visible to anyone approaching along the river. This was not casual rock art. This was a message, or perhaps a boundary left behind by people who understood exactly where they were placing it. The stone itself is enormous, weighing many tons, resting partially embedded in the earth near the water's edge. Its location is significant. Rivers were central to Taíno life, not only as sources of water and food, but as spiritual pathways. Rivers connected the mountains to the sea, the living world to the unseen. Placing a carved stone at this point suggests La Piedra Escrita marked something important, possibly a crossing, a gathering place, or a ceremonial threshold. The petroglyphs carved into the stone are varied and complex. Faces dominate the surface, some clearly human, others abstract or distorted. Eyes are common, often exaggerated, staring outward, as if watching those who approach. Mouths are sometimes open, sometimes closed, sometimes barely suggested. There are curved lines, circular motifs, and shapes that defy easy classification. No two carvings are exactly alike. Archaeologists generally agree these carvings were created by Taíno or earlier indigenous peoples, though precise dating remains difficult. Unlike organic material, stone does not give up its age easily. What's clear is that the carvings were added deliberately, and possibly over a long period of time. This wasn't a single artist or moment. It was an ongoing act of marking. One of the central mysteries of La Piedra Escrita is its purpose. Was it a religious object, a territorial marker, or a record of lineage or events? There is no written key, no oral tradition that survived intact to explain it. What we're left with is context, placement, and comparison to other Taíno sites. Many of the faces resemble Zemi imagery found elsewhere on the island. Zemis were spiritual entities connected to ancestors, nature forces, and deities. They were not symbolic in a modern sense. They were believed to be active presences. Carving Zemi faces into a stone by a river suggests an attempt to anchor spiritual power to a specific place. The direction the faces look also matters. Most face outward, toward the river and the approach path. This positioning suggests they were meant to be seen, not hidden. Anyone arriving by water or foot would encounter the stone head-on, confronted by a wall of gazes. This creates an immediate psychological effect. You are being observed before you observe. Some researchers believe La Piedra Escrita functioned as a boundary marker, possibly indicating the edge of a territory controlled by a particular cacique or community. In this interpretation, the carving served both spiritual and political roles. Crossing this point was not just a physical act, it was a social and ceremonial one. Another theory suggests the stone was a gathering place for ritual. The flat areas nearby could accommodate groups, and the river would have provided sound, movement, and symbolic depth. Water flowing past the stone may have been seen as carrying messages or offerings downstream. Rituals performed here could have tied human intention to natural flow. There is also the question of why this stone specifically was chosen. The surrounding area contains other rocks, yet only this one bears extensive carvings. Its size, shape, and position may have made it stand out long before any marks were added. In many indigenous traditions, certain stones were considered already powerful before human intervention. Carving them did not create power, it revealed it. Transporting or repositioning a stone of this size would have been nearly impossible with Taíno technology, suggesting the stone was carved where it naturally rested. This makes its original placement even more intriguing. Why did such a massive boulder come to rest exactly here? Was it moved by ancient flooding, or was it always part of the river's edge? The Taíno may have seen its arrival as a sign. The carvings themselves show variation in depth and style, hinting that different individuals or generations contributed. Some lines are crisp and deep, others are shallow, worn smooth by time and water. This layering suggests continuity. The stone mattered long enough for people to keep returning to it, adding their marks rather than erasing what came before. Unlike caves or plazas, La Piedra Escrita stands in open daylight. There is no darkness, no enclosure. This openness changes how we interpret its role. It was not a hidden or restricted space. It was public. Whatever happened here was meant to be witnessed, remembered, and possibly repeated. Colonial contact disrupted that continuity. As indigenous populations declined and traditions were suppressed, places like La Piedra Escrita lost their context. The stone remained, but its voice faded. Over time, it became a curiosity, then a landmark, and eventually a protected site. For centuries, local stories filled the gap left by lost knowledge. Some legends claimed the carvings were warnings. Others suggested they were messages left by ancestors to guide future generations. These stories are not archaeological evidence, but they matter. They show that the stone never fully slipped into silence. Modern preservation has stabilized the site, but it has also changed how people interact with it. Paths, signs, and barriers protect the carvings, but they also frame the experience. You're told what to look at, how to stand, how to understand, and yet even with interpretation, the stone resists explanation. Standing in front of La Piedra Escrita today, what stands out most is scale and presence. The carvings are not decorative flourishes, they are assertive. The faces do not smile or invite, they endure. Rain washes over them, sun heats them, the river rises and falls beside them. They remain. There is no consensus on whether La Piedra Escrita was meant to be read as a single composition or as an accumulation of individual expressions. It may not matter. In Taíno culture, meaning did not always require linear narrative. Power could reside in repetition, in presence, in the act of returning to the same place over time. What La Piedra Escrita ultimately represents is a different relationship with permanence. Words fade, oral stories change, but stone holds memory in a different way. Not clearly, not neatly, but persistently. The mystery is not just what the carvings meant, but why meaning was fixed here at all. Why this river? Why this stone? Why these faces? Those questions remain open, and perhaps they always will. La Piedra Escrita does not invite decoding so much as attention. It stands as evidence that long before history books, people marked the landscape with intention, turning natural features into anchors of memory and identity. Even now, with the river moving steadily past and the mountains closing in around the valley, the stone feels less like an artifact and more like a witness. Whatever stories once surrounded it may be gone, but the act of carving remains locked into the rock, asking us to acknowledge that this place once mattered deeply and in ways we are still learning how to recognize.